The Secretary of Defense Mark Esper gave permission to $3.6 billion for the financing of the Pentagon was used for the construction of a wall on the border with Mexico. The money will be used for construction of 280 kilometers of the wall, will go from 127 military projects, which will be temporarily frozen. The minister informed Congress in a letter. The construction of this wall was one of the main promises of the election campaign of Donald Trump, which met with fierce resistance by the way he became president. In a letter to several committees in Congress by Defense Minister enumerates 127 military construction projects worldwide, which will be frozen for the sake of financing the construction of the wall. The Democratic Party believe that when President Trump and his administration will receive the money for the construction of the wall, they try to limit the role of Congress in budgeting for governmental agencies. The senator from Democrats Chuck Schumer said that this situation shows that President Trump tries to swallow the already allocated military spending to feed the ego wall, for which, as he promised, will pay Mexico. In a letter to the Minister of Defense, it is about 127 projects, including projects in 23 U.S. states, 2 U.S. overseas territories and 20 other countries. In the United States will be frozen projects at about $1 billion. Another $700 million will be deprived of projects in such U.S. jurisdictions of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands and Guam. However, funding was resumed, the consent of Congress, upon adoption of the annual law on military spending, so these expenses can be legal in a kind of vicious circle, and can therefore be de facto deprived of funding. Last week, in anticipation of a possible meeting of Ukrainian president with the U.S. president in Warsaw, where, however, Donald Trump did not come because of the hurricane, he became aware of the revision of the program of financial assistance to Ukraine in the field of security. The influential publication Politico, citing sources, wrote that Trump the president instructed his national security team to revise the program of financial assistance to check whether you are using money in the interests of the United States. We are talking about $250 million that Congress has allocated for safe assistance to Ukraine in 2019. It was assumed that these funds can go to purchase weapons of a defensive character, training, equipment and intelligence. It was expected that next year Ukraine should receive the same amount. As noted by the publication, for a long time it is the U.S. assistance to Ukraine in the military sphere was considered a litmus test for how well Washington is determined to respond to the antics of Moscow. And that is why, wrote the authors of the Politico, members of Congress from both Democrats and Republicans expressed concern about the possibility of viewing aid to Ukraine